In this video, we'll be converting the single attachment capabilities for notes into being able to attach multiple attachments to a single note. In order to do that, the first thing that we'll have to do is create a new model. And this model is going to be called note files or note attachments. Let's call it note attachments. Actually I'll call it note files. Note file. And press enter. In our new model, we will create a identity or primary key called ID, and for the next attribute, we'll create an attribute called file name and save it. Next, we will go to our note, and rather than having a single string, we're going to have a list of strings, and we're going to call it file paths instead. And likewise, we're going to go to our view model, and instead of having a single iform file, we're going to have a list of iform file and call this attribute files instead. So that's the changes we need to do to our first set of models, which will be accepting the files. Next, we'll have to modify our create view. And we will be changing up our JavaScript to state how many files have been uploaded rather than just showing the name of the file, because now we can actually upload more than one file. Furthermore, we'll have to change ASP4 file to files since we changed the name. And we'll say choose files instead of file. Now let's go down to our JavaScript for parsing the string that was entered and create a bunch of new JavaScript that will suit our new purpose and new functionality. So here I'm getting the file label element. Next, I'm getting the names of all the files. I'm getting all the files that were uploaded. Now I'm checking to see how many files were uploaded. And if more than one file was uploaded, I'm putting in the actual number of files that were uploaded. Otherwise, if there's only one file uploaded, I'll update the label with the following. I'll get the name of the file that was uploaded. And finally, I'll update the file label with Actually, I don't think we need this because the file label has already been updated in our if statement. Okay, so let's see now the changes we had to make to our controller. Because if you recall correctly, currently in our controller, we're only accepting one file. So we have to update the code in our logic to store more than one file. So as you can see, we have an error. And the reason why we have that error is because it's looking for the file attribute when it no longer exists. So let's say files is not equal to null, and so count is greater than 0. So now I'm checking that there's a file been uploaded. And if there has been, I'll do the following. For each I form file, a file in notes.files, take this code, put it in the loop, and modify it. And I'll import the iFormFile attribute, which if you recall is a placeholder for the actual file, is a model for the file that is passed in. Okay, so next at the top, since we're getting more than one file, we're going to create a new attribute, and we'll call it list of note file. We'll call it unique file names, and create a new list of note file. Okay. Now here we'll have to create a new string because no longer are we dealing with just one file path or one unique file name. Now we're dealing with multiple. So the code has to change. So we'll create the file name here again for this particular element. Change this to file name. And we're dealing with a file instead of a note. Okay, so we created the new folder path. We're getting the unique file name. We have two add the fact, we'd add this new file, we'd create a list of it. So basically what we're doing here is creating the data for our note model, since we're still getting the create note view model from the front end. So we're mapping the data. File name. And OK. And then we'll go to about our note, and rather than passing in file path, we have file paths, and we're going to assign it unique file names. OK. And it's complaining, and let's find out why. And that is because in our notes, we have a string instead of a note path, note file. And this should be note file instead. So now our code should be OK. And we should be able to save more than one file at the moment. So I believe I made all the changes to the controller, to the models, as well as to the view in all the areas that we were supposed to. Now let's press play. And test out our changes. And we have some build errors. So press no, and then it'll tell us where the errors are happening. Note does not contain definition for file path. So here's the first issue, because we changed note from file path to file paths. And that's in our details page, which we haven't uploaded yet. So we also have to modify our details page because we're able to list more than one note now. So in order to do that, we'd add the following code, which is razor syntax, at for each var file in model.file paths. So this way we're getting a list of all the file paths. And then here we use file dot file name. And then for the download attachment, we want to be able to distinguish those files. So rather than having download attachment, we'll have at file.file name. So that way we'll have the file names there. And then we'll surround this element with curly brackets. And save. And there we go. That will remove the errors, and then press play. So now we've made the changes to upload multiple files, as well as display multiple files that have been uploaded to our create view and our modifications to our details view. So I'm playing it and waiting. So I will log in. And I'll create a new note. And I'll call this note a note with multiple attachments. But we did forget one thing. We haven't updated the database with the changes we made. So let's go back and do that. Okay, so I open up Package Manager. And it'll initialize it. Tools. This computer is a bit slow. Add migration note files. So we create the additional migration. And then we'll do a database update. So it generates our migration file. And update database. And boom, the changes have been made to our database for storing the names of the files. Okay, so we play. Copy this. Create a new note. Select multiple attachments. Select 3. Open. It says 3 files selected, like we expected. Create. And we'll go to our notes. We have notes with multiple attachment. View the details. And as you can see, we had an error. It says object not set to an instance of an object. And that is because of the following. So what we have to do, because in the details view we're returning another object that's associated with our notes, which is the notes files. In our link we had to say include. We had to import the library for it, entity framework core, and say note files arrow note files dot file paths. This will populate that note files object in this notes model. Otherwise, by default, for the sake of efficiency, Visual Studios won't return this information. So now let's press play. Go to Notes. Create a new note with multiple attachments. 2. Add the attachments. create it. It's been created. Go to notes, view the details, and as you can see, we have 3 notes associated with our details. So now we have the ability to upload multiple files when we create a note.